Welcome everybody. This is MELS 605 Town Hall. A couple of things to remind you of before we get started on interviewing tonight. Next Monday at 9 a.m., not 9 p.m., 9 a.m. next Monday, I've got to turn the finalists into the registrar. So your complete task stream portfolio, including all of your evidence artifacts, competency analysis, School of Ed dispositions, intern log, and competency folio have to be done by next Monday morning at 9 o'clock. I've already sent that out multiple times. It's on all your shelves. So make sure that you know that. Next Monday morning, December the 3rd at 9 a.m. That's the deadline. All right, because the program goes to the printer after that, all those things. All right, now.
Dr. Lamb, if any of them gets an email from me or from you or whatever, that means I've gone into task stream and that something has not been completed, and they just need to go into task stream and find out why it's not completed if they think it's completed.
Yeah, I'll do an audit at the end of the week.
Okay. And
I always do one, but I'll do an audit at the end of the week and give you time to, if there's anything that you're missing, I'll let you know.
Okay. And I'll look at mine as well.
Yeah, I'll do an audit, and we'll make sure, and I've already confirmed the list with the registrar. And you got the email about getting your name correct on your certificate. All right, on the competency folio, make sure you understand you owe us 3 artifacts for each of the 21 competencies. Now, I don't know why we keep having the same problem. You don't owe me anything for digital learning competencies here. They are embedded in the first 21. They're one of the 3 that you owe in each of the first 21. There is no separate digital learning competencies. They are embedded. So that's 21 times 3 is 63, starting with communication and going through visionary. Once you get it done in all your 605 shells, there's a quick video that I made that shows you how to upload it for it to be evaluated. Publish and share will not do that. Say that again. Publish and share will not get it evaluated. There is in each of your, for example, this is Dr. Robertson's shell. Down toward the bottom, how to upload your completed competency folio for evaluation. And when you click on that, you get a 2.5-minute video from me that runs you through that again. So once you get that, don't upload it until it's done, though. Because once it's over, it's evaluated and can't come back. So that's that one. Now, in each of your 605 shells, under intern materials, I have put a new link to the latest information. If you are a South Carolina student who has to take the praxis to get your South Carolina license, everybody that comes to this program will be licensed in North Carolina. Praxis, you don't have to do anything to be licensed other than submit your task stream portfolio in North Carolina. Now, if you want to be licensed in South Carolina, you must additionally take the praxis. You all know that. This is the code, the 5412 exam, Ed Leadership, Administration, and Supervision. You got to make 146. If you click on this link, it will take you to the website where all the new practice materials are. Many of them are free. So this is in all of your 605 shells under internal materials. I put it there last night. There has been a slight change. They put out some new study materials. Those were approved earlier this month. And I now have them in your website on your page for you. Now, I don't want 1,000 emails or calls. I don't know what to do. I'm in North Carolina. I didn't know. You don't have to take the praxis if all you want is North Carolina certification. This is only for those who wish to be South Carolina certified as well. So don't send me 1,000 emails or call me. You can call me and talk about other things, but not that. All right. So that should be all of our housekeeping for the evening. So let's jump into interviewing right quick. All right. All right. There are 4 types of interviews for an AP, whether you're in North or South Carolina. Now, you never know which of these 4, all these 4, which type that you're going to get. So you need to be prepared for all, but before you go to an interview, you need to ask and find out what kind of interview it's going to be so that you can do a little more preparation. The 4 types are the applicant pool interview, and there's 4 different ones of those. The applicant pool, one for Strength Finder, the Gallup dispositional one, the in-basket activity, which is a reasoning activity, and the so those are the 4 types. Then the next type is the group interview, the principal interview, and then the superintendent interview. Each of these are separate and distinct. There are separate things we need to do for each of these, and we'll get into those as we go. First thing I want to talk about is the overall part of interviewing. So I'll start with my top 10 for job interviews. Let me mute everybody. I'm getting feedback. All right. So here are the 10 things that I think are the most important. Number 1, dress for success. I don't care, even if it's something informal and they just told you to come on, make sure that you're dressed appropriately. I think back to an AP interview that I had. I was a high school principal, and a fella called for an interview, and they sent him over from HR, and it was during a teacher work day, and I knew he was working, and I told him to come on, but unfortunately for him, he had his wig on crooked. That's all I could think about the whole time. I thought, I can't hire him to work in high school. The kids, he wasn't dressed appropriately, and he was wearing a hairpiece that was kind of off the side of his head. And so I know he probably was a great person, but he just did not look the part, and I just couldn't hire him. That may be small or petty on my part, but people are just human. Make sure you go in looking your best. If you wear a hairpiece, that's okay. But make sure at least it's on straight. Take a 2-page evidence summary with you. And I've got an example of one. This is getting less and less common, but if you're interviewing with an older administrator that came through before the evidence artifact portfolios came along, that took the old ISLIC exam or took the old NT exam as I did, they don't really know what evidence artifacts are, your task stream portfolio. I always suggest that you do a quick 2-pager on the 6 evidence artifacts that basically quickly explain what you did. You don't read it to them, but if they're interested in it, you can say, here, this is kind of a synopsis of the 6 evidences that I did. If they don't ask, don't give it to them. To that end, you can publish and share your competency folio so that they can actually see things that you did, pictures. That's why I've told you to stress pictures a lot for the competency folio, interesting things that they might see, because people might want to know what you did during your clinical experience. And so the 2-page evidence summary and the competency folio are, in fact, your portfolio. And those are the kinds of things that you take along on an interview. Let me get out of that and look at this one right quick. Things you bring on your interview, a current resume, a cover letter, your references, a plan, and a portfolio. These are the last 2 right here. Obviously, your 2-page evidence summary is your strategic plan. It is your school improvement plan. And your portfolio is your competency folio. So these are 5 things that you normally bring on an interview. You all know to bring a resume, a cover letter, and your references. I suggest you have those in a 2-page format. But the last 2, the strategic plan and your portfolio, you also have those. You got to do a little work on your strategic plan, just to summarize your 6 evidences, but you would be able to have these things. And these are things that a professional would be expected to bring on a job interview. Okay. Number 2. So number 3, research both the school and school administration. Look at the state report card, know the backgrounds of the administrative team so you can talk with them about their school and about what you've done during your clinical experience so that you can compare and contrast the 2. This is not so that you can throw stones at them, but you can relate through your clinical experiences to the situation that they're in. Know what you don't know. EVOS, Power School, Power Source, RTI, PBIS, and Finance. Now, what that means, and be able to speak to instruction and the bottom line, student achievement. When I say know what you don't know, you've only probably seen EVOS, Power School, Power Source, RTI, PBIS, and finance from the teacher perspective or the intern. There's a lot more to learn about all of those, especially getting trained to do evaluations. And so you need to understand that so that you can say, I understand that I don't know how to operate the administrative portal of Power School, or I haven't done teacher observations or been certified, but I will get that. So you got to know what you don't know, and that will help you with that. We have one that says our district interviews as a panel from, yeah, that's what's called a cattle call interview, Carrie. That's the first level. That's what we're going to talk about first. Sometimes, so that's why it works different ways. So there's 4 different types. And so, yes, that's called the group interview. And we'll cover that in just a moment. Have a humorous anecdote about how you were able to turn a negative into a positive. Most every reference I fill out wants to know about a time that you were faced with a challenge or you had a negative situation. Have a humorous anecdote about how you turned a negative into a positive. Be prepared to discuss hours and responsibilities honestly. I visited the school in September, and I saw on the bulletin board, welcome new staff and new assistant principal, and I walked in and talked to the principal and said, I didn't know you'd hired Allison. She said, I've already fired her. I said, but what are you talking about? I said, you know, we're a late start school. Once she took the job, she informed me that she had to leave at 4 o'clock every day. We don't even let students out till 4:45, and faculty can't leave till 5:30. She told me she had to leave every day at 4 o'clock. I told her she could leave now. You need to be honest about the school won't get any closer to your house because you get the job. Traffic won't get any better. Yeah, you can make it, you can make it in 35 minutes in the middle of the night, but most folks don't go to work in the middle of the night. How bad's the traffic at 7 o'clock in the morning? Those are things that you need to know about and you need to be honest about. Know your strengths and weaknesses. I'm going to give you an anecdote on that one in just a minute. When we talk about hours and being honest, if you can't be there, then you aren't much help. Or if you need to leave. And so we'll talk about that one at the end, but that's a biggie for me. Now, when you talk about your strengths and weaknesses, and you'll get asked that question in a lot of different interview types, there is a way to answer that you don't hurt your chances in a job. That's the trick question to interview. Tell us about your strengths and weaknesses. All right, so here's the deal. Your strengths should always be dispositional. I'm honest. I'm on time. I'm fair. I'm dependable. I'm responsible. Dispositional things that won't change because you're a fully formed professional adult. Those are your strengths. Your weaknesses are always things that because of a lack of experience. But those can improve. Don't go in and say, well, I'm not really a morning person in school. As a weakness, that's not going to change. If you're that dumb, we're not going to hire you. Or if we do, we're going to fire you fairly quickly. That's not the right thing to say in the school business. Your strength should always be dispositional, things that won't change, that are desired qualities and traits. Your weaknesses are always based on, I haven't done teacher observation, but I'm going to get trained right away. Should be things that you can change, that you can improve, that you can go and get instruction or training or experience in. So your weaknesses should always be experiential, lack of experience, things that can improve. Your strengths should be things that are endemic, that are embedded in you. All right. Don't discuss salary, experience steps, national board pay, or any of that. The people that interview won't have any of that information. That's done in HR. And if you're interested in that, you need to make an appointment with them before or after the interview to go and talk with them. And that may be part of your decision making about taking the job. But the people at the interview, that's not appropriate information or content or questions for them. Don't engage in gossip or negative talk. You know, if somebody asks you how things are at your school, they're fine. Even if the place was on fire as you were leaving, they're fine. Do not engage in gossip or negative talk. And then number 10, this is my pet peeve. Don't interview for a job that you wouldn't take just for the experience. You're wasting the person's time that's interviewing you in order to get around. You know, I've had people come in and say, well, I wouldn't work here. I just want to know what the questions were. So when I went to a good place, I'd know how to answer the questions. Well, I'll let you go on to that good place now, but I bet they don't hire you either, because I'll put a hold on your employment. Don't waste people's time. When I'm interviewing for an assistant principal, my job is to find the best one possible, not to get you experience interviewing. Don't be dumb enough to tell them that you wouldn't work in that, you know, this is a slaughterhouse and I wouldn't work here. No. If you know the place is too far from your home, or that the traffic's too bad, or you don't like the community that the school is in, or it's not the grade level that you prefer, then don't go. Don't waste people's time. To that end, I'm going to go ahead and close this one. To that end, 10 things you should know about your interviewer. We want to find the best person, and we're busy. We don't have time to train you for interviewing. And you know, here are some other things, but the two that I want you to focus in on this list is we're trying to find the best person, and we're busy. Our job is not to train you to interview. So if you know that you wouldn't work at that place, don't go. Well, I need the experience interviewing. No, but you're going to get all experience is not good. If you know you're not going to work there, don't go. All right. Let's see what else I've got here. All right. Last thing on general interviewing, 5 things you shouldn't ask. When they ask you if you have any questions, the appropriate answer is no, I don't have any. You are completely clear and transparent with me. That would be the appropriate answer, even if you have questions. Now's not the time to be chatty Cathy. Bite your tongue. But especially don't ask things like, when will I be promoted? How long do people usually have to be an AP before they get promoted? What's the salary? Again, we don't talk money in the interviews. When can I expect or no? Don't start talking about flex times options. Remember, that's, you know, you ought to know when the hours are and when you got to show up. And the expectation is you show up every day on time. And don't ask anything that shows you've not been listening. So that's the best thing to do, is don't ask any. I had somebody to ask that today. Yeah. And the answer is we don't have flex time options in the school business. And you know, we don't talk about money. We don't talk about promotions. We talk about, remember, they're trying to find the best person for the job. They're not there to be your job coach or your agent or whatever. So that's some general overview of interviewing. Now, let's talk about the types of interviews that you might face. The first would be the applicant pool type of interview, where there's a lot of people and they go to narrow you down. They have to find a quick and easy way to kind of separate the serious candidates from the not serious candidates without having to spend a fortune on background checks and drug tests and all that stuff. The applicant pool, sometimes they use a variation of Strength Finder, the book that you have, and they'll give you a quiz, kind of like the quiz that you take for Strength Finder. Sometimes it's the exact one. And they want to look and see what your strengths are. That may be the opening. That may be, you know, they have 5 things or at least 3 things that they're looking for from Strength Finder, but you don't know what they are. But it may be that you take a quiz like the one that's in your Strength Finder book, and you find your 5 strong areas. And hopefully that's what they're looking for. But answer truthfully. Don't answer the way you think that they might want you to. The worst thing you can do is they hire you thinking you're one person and you're somebody else. Make sure that you're honest and true to yourself. Now, there's an older version of Strength Finder that was a 60-question test, also by the Gallup organization. I'm not sure anybody is still using it. They're using variations of it. It's a dispositional survey to find out about your dispositions. And the 12 dispositions that they're looking for are much like Strength Finder, since it's the same company. They're looking for commitment, ego drive, achiever, developer, individualized, perception, relator, stimulator, team, arranger, command, discipline, and concept. Now, before you say, Dale, where's this in our materials? It is. It's copyrighted, and I can't give it to you, but I'm going to go over with you. Now, if you take one of these Strength Finder tests, they just want to know what you are. If they give you a quiz or a survey, you know, if they sit and interview you and ask you specific questions, there are some landmine questions that you've got to avoid. And let me kind of go over those with you. One of the questions that you might be asked is, should the principal treat all teachers the same? That's a landmine question. Hopefully you know by now that you don't. Situational leadership, you treat different teachers differently according to their readiness or maturity level where they are. And so that's kind of one of those trick questions from Gallup. No, you don't treat every teacher the same. Do you want teachers to know that they can call you anytime, day or night? And the answer is yes. You're always available. You're a servant leader. That's a big theme, is that you availability. Are there certain beliefs which you have no intention of ever changing your mind? Yes, all kids can learn. That's the one that most everybody wants to know, that you believe that all kids can learn, that you're not ever going to abandon that concept. In developing teachers, do you think it is more important to stress what they do well or identify weaknesses and suggest how they can overcome them? It's more important when you're developing teachers, new ones, which is probably your number one job, is when you hire, especially new people, is to make them successful. You want to dwell on what they do well, not what they don't do well yet. That's a biggie. Are you an on-time person? The answer is yes, always. Doesn't matter if you are or not. Just don't be late for that interview and tell them you are. But yes, you're always an on-time person. And then probably the one trick question that they'll ask you is if it paid exactly the same, would you prefer to work with students or work with adults? Stay in the classroom, be a teacher, or be an administrator if it paid exactly the same? The appropriate answer is to work with adults. Remember, you're interviewing for a job change. You're changing careers from working with students to working with adults. If you tell them that if it paid the same, that you'd stay in the classroom, they'll let you stay in the classroom. So make sure that you understand that. Now, that's dispositional. They're trying to find out what kind of person you are. That would be a Gallup survey. An in-basket reasoning activity, they might just give it to you and tell you you've got 30 minutes to do it. Here's one in here. I'm not going to go through all of this. But here's the landmine, the first landmine in this one. They ask you to, I think there's how many? There's 21 emails. They ask you to correct category. First thing you do, you put them in 4 quadrants: urgent, important, not urgent, but important, urgent, but not important, and not urgent, not important. Now, if you put any in quadrant 3, you fail the test. There's nothing that is urgent but not important. It can't be urgent if it has no importance. So that's the first one. This is a reasoning activity. Think about it. No way for something to be urgent but not important. All right. Then when you look at the scenarios, this is one that I've heard that most every one of these has something like this in it. To Dr. Brown, the newspaper would like to do a feature on you as a new AP, and I need to set up a time for interviewing you and some of the teachers and students. Please respond as soon as you receive this email and let me know a good time to come. Tom Roberts, State Educational News. All right, so not urgent, but important. What would you do with this one? Do not respond. This one is to be forwarded to your public information office. Please remember that all school districts have a hard and fast rule that you do not speak to the media, that all media requests have to go to the public information office. You dare not let media on your campus with cameras, film students. You notice always when they have something happen to the school, they're always standing out in the front yard, waving down cars, trying to talk with parents, and they're across the street. That's because they're not allowed on campus for confidentiality. You need to know that. Hopefully you learned that in 603, if not with me, but with somebody else. But there's several scenarios in here. Some of them are law, like this one, privacy. You can't let kids be on camera, show their face, those kinds of things. Some of them are immaterial, but this is a reasoning activity. But usually there's going to be something big, like one of them is going to be like that, where you make sure that you understand that you have to follow the protocol in the district, especially on meeting with the media or releasing statements of any kind. The other is going to be to make sure that you understand something like nothing is urgent and not important. It can't be urgent if it's not important. This is a reasoning activity. They normally give you about 30 minutes to do one of these. Again, this is before you actually meet with somebody. This is when they're narrowing the applicant pool down. They've got 200 applicants for 2 jobs. This is the way they get down to 20 or 30 applicants initially. All right. The fourth of these kind is the virtual interview. A lot of larger districts make you go through this to even get into the applicant pool. And it's going to go kind of like this. You'll be sitting there facing the screen just like I am tonight on a product like Zoom. The main thing is don't appear like you're reading. One of the tricks is if you think you need notes, take and put them on sticky notes and put them around the edge of your computer screen so that you don't appear to be reading when you're answering questions. They're going to watch your demeanor more than anything else to make sure that you aren't reading and that you are actually conversing. And so they'll be asking you these kinds of questions. They're just general questions. They'll give you a set of questions and you have to kind of work your way through them. This is a reasoning activity here. It may be embedded in a virtual interview. They'll have you watch a video maybe. There's a system policy you didn't agree with. That's a landmine. Will you follow the district policy? If the policy is no contact with media, will you follow through on that? There's always a landmine question like that. You got to be quick with answers. And so if they give you some information, some data to study, and then they're going to quiz you on it, write notes again and put them around the margin of your computer so you can refer back to them. But this is a virtual interview. Main thing is don't look like you're reading. Look in the screen like you're talking to somebody. and make sure that you don't get comfortable and fall into a landmine question. Don't let them coach you into a landmine question. Understand that this is a job interview and they're trying to weed you out even though you are sitting at home. All right. So those are the 4 types of interviews that you're most likely to encounter when you're in a big pool of people and they're just trying to get you down to a manageable size and start the actual real interviews with you. All right. So the first real interview that you might have, as Carrie was talking about, is a group interview. Group interview usually have somebody from HR that's kind of running the group, but a lot of the people in that group may or may not be professional educators. They may be stakeholders, lay people. And so the trick with them is don't use so much educational jargon. Let's look at, I've got a PowerPoint here for you to look at. Briefly describe what you perceive as your leadership style. Now, if you say, well, I subscribe to the transformational leadership style as opposed to transactional, not too many people are going to know what you talk about. So these are the buzz phrases that you would use. They are pretty much the definition of a transformational leader who believes in servant leadership and shared governance. Those are 3 concepts that we've tried to teach you. That's what these mean. Focus on issues, child-centered, strive to be impartial, courteous, positive, approachable. Don't use big terms like the next one. We often hear how assessment drives instruction. How would you help new teachers begin to understand the use of data available to schools to make, instead of saying PLCs, instead of saying EVOS, we're going to do data analysis. We'll do development of teaching strategies based on the needs of students. That would be differentiated instruction. Willingness to plan collaboratively, that would be PLC. But these lay people won't know what PLC means. They won't understand differentiated instruction. They don't know what EVOS is. The idea in the group interview with lay people or stakeholders is don't use acronyms and jargon that goes over their head. I set up and ran a Principal of the Year interview for a local school district this past spring. One of the young men that came in was just sharp as a tack. He read from his notes and he kept using acronyms, and then he would say to the panel, but you probably don't understand that. And when he got through, this lady who was there who looked like, I'm guessing he thought she was just a regular housewife, but was an attorney in Charlotte, said, how many times did he call me stupid? I think I counted about 6. When he said, well, you don't understand that, or you can't understand that, or you don't understand that. Avoid that. Don't use that jargon to begin with. And so I've got several slides for you here. This one, obviously, high yield strategies, but they don't know what that is, and so you kind of explain it. Best practices, effective use of resources, engagement. So what I've done is I've taken the jargon that you would normally see and translated it. When you get asked these questions, you think, oh, that's PLC, or oh, that's EVOS. Not with the group of lay people. You have to use information. You have to use verbiage, vocabulary that they understand. Don't say, oh, you won't understand that, because that's the same as calling them stupid. They don't particularly like that in interviews. Okay. All right. The next one is the principal interview, where you interview with the actual principal of the building. This is where you get to use all the jargon, all the acronyms, everything that you've learned in this program. You get to use that with this person. And so let me find it. And they'll ask you things like your educational background, your work experience, why you want to do this, and then they'll start asking you more specific questions like, describe your philosophy of discipline. This is when you talk about PBIS. There's a lot of these. This is when you use all your acronyms. Now, about 45 minutes into this one, when you get to feeling comfortable, they're going to spring that trap question on you about strengths and weaknesses. Don't forget, your strengths are all dispositional. I'm honest. I'm responsible. I'm a go-getter. I'm enthusiastic. I'm on time. I'm legal. I'm moral. I'm ethical. All the good stuff that's dispositional that won't change. Your weaknesses, again, are things that are related to inexperience that you can fix fairly quickly once you get the job. So that's going to be kind of the landmine in the principal interview. You can use as much vernacular as you want to, and as many of the acronyms and the educational ease as you can, but don't fall into don't get so comfortable that you forget about that landmine question about strengths and weaknesses. And so that's when you go and meet with the principal. You get to talk shop about the actual business. All right. And then the last one, a lot of superintendents have started interviewing assistant principals. I think maybe the first person who did that was Mo when he was superintendent in Guilford. Worked with him in Charlotte. And one of the things that he talked about is most principals come from the assistant principal ranks. I want to make sure that somebody's not appropriate to be a principal. They shouldn't be an assistant principal. And so he started doing that. And I think a lot more districts are doing that now. Maybe in Charlotte, the area superintendent interviews as well for APs. When you interview with the superintendent or the area superintendent, you're not going to be talking about any of the mundane day-to-day things about the business. You're going to be talking about the big picture, 21st century skills. And they're going to ask you a really tough question. You'll be able to tell them, what 21st century skills are. You'll be able to talk about the rainbow and all of those kinds of things. You all know that stuff, but they're going to ask you two things that's going to be fairly tough to answer. One is, how do you implement these skills, these 21st century skills, and what will students look like? How will you know if you've done it correctly? What will students look like if you've done it correctly? Well, thankfully, we have two documents here. One is 6 Steps to Implementing 21st Century Skills. This is a really good one that talks about the step-by-step of how you implement them. Now, you don't have to memorize this, but you should be able to speak at least to the steps: increasing awareness, assessing your current state, narrowing to manageable number of skills. Don't try to do them all at one time, according to what resources you already have on hand. Exploit those. Planning, implementation, and assessment, evaluation, and continuous improvement assessment. This is how you implement them. And then when you're asked, if you do this correctly, what should they look like? Of course, they will look like future ready students. We've already defined what we want the outcomes to be. This is what they will look like. If we've done our job with 21st century skills, this is what they will look like. We call them future ready students. If we have if we have implemented 21st century skills correctly, these are the kind of big picture things the superintendent's going to talk to you about, so that they know that you know where we're headed and what we're trying to do. If you don't know where we're going, you're probably not going to get there. But where we're headed is to, a 21st century ready workforce. Our students ready to go to college or into the workforce that are 21st century ready. And this is what they would look like. And that's what will happen. So, to review, you need to know what kind of interview you're going to. If you're in a bigger district that has dozens or hundreds of applicants, you're going to probably have to go through some kind of an applicant pool interview that just weeds you out. It may be impersonal. You may not even be talking with somebody. It may be virtual. It may just be you show up at some place and they give you a reasoning activity. I know in Winston-Salem, I don't know if they've recently had a change, but up until very recently, you just showed up at the designated time and place, and they gave you an activity, and you went off and did it, and you turned it in. If you got through that, then you actually started the interview process. Charlotte Mecklenburg's still doing virtual interviews. If you don't get through that, you never even get in the building with somebody to actually interview. If you're in a smaller district, you may or may not skip that step. Group interviews, sometimes they're teachers, sometimes they're administrators, sometimes they're stakeholders, parents, community members. If it's anybody less than school administrators, be careful again with your jargon. Even if it's teachers, be careful with your jargon. Speak to them in terms that they understand when you're doing the group interview. Let me go back here and move that out of the way. Yep. Thank you, Travis. Travis said Winston-Salem is sending out a 10-question interview that they say only 50% will pass. Yep. They've been doing that for quite a while. They used to make you show up and take it. So now they're just sending it out. They're not even letting you come to the building now. I guess maybe that saves you and them time. But Winston-Salem's been doing that for a while, where the first round, it's just impersonal. If you don't pass the test, you're just done. It's a form. Yeah, Travis said it's a form. He said he did it last week. Yeah. That's kind of a pre-interview in a large district with applicant pools. You got to take those seriously, though. If it's a reasoning activity, remember all your school law about FERPA and privacy and public information and due process, those kinds of things. That's kind of the stuff that'll trip you up on those. Reasoning activity. Nothing is not important but urgent. If it's not important, it can't be urgent. That kind of reasoning in there, again, on the group interview, if there's somebody less than an administrator in rank in there, switch to default mode where you don't use all your jargon. If there's parents or teachers in there, make sure that you speak to them in terms that they understand. The principal interview, you can use all your jargon, all your acronyms, do all that, but don't fall asleep. Don't get to feeling comfortable and get blindsided by that strength and weaknesses question. Remember, your strengths are always dispositional, things that won't change. Weaknesses are always based on inexperience, period. It's not that you can't do it, it's just you hadn't done it yet. And then the superintendent interview, the big picture interview, it's not enough to just know what 21st century skills are. You need to know a little quick and dirty process for implementing them, and you also need to know that we've already reverse engineered it. We know what they're supposed to look like. It's called future ready students. So now, if you can, if you can navigate your way through this and understand what they're asking you or where you are in this process, this list, you'll have a better chance of getting through the interview and making it to the next level. But again, I'm going to go back to my top 10 again. I think I closed it, but I'm going to go back to that one. And get those for you again. I want to reiterate them again. Be careful about how you dress, even if you're just on video. Make sure that you dress appropriately. Your evidence summary and your portfolio, your competency folio, those are things that would be nice to have that you can take along with you if you're asked for them. Know something about the school so that you can speak their language. Again, know the things that you don't have much experience in from the administrative side, and that the portal looks much different. Just like in Power School, the portal looks much different for an administrator than it does for a teacher. Know that. Don't walk in, oh, I've done all that stuff. No, you haven't. Know what you don't know. Humorous anecdotes always go pretty far, especially when you're able to turn a negative into a positive. Again, school won't get any closer to your house. Traffic won't get any better just because you get the job. Don't interview for a job that you know you're not going to take. Just to know what the questions are. Know what your strengths and weaknesses are. Again, strengths are dispositional, weaknesses are inexperience. Don't talk about salary or any of that stuff, anything related to salary, and don't gossip. Now, you're going to get a job. This is the last thing I'm going to leave with you tonight. Here's my top 10 for your first faculty meeting. By the time your first faculty meeting rolls around, a lot of people have already made their mind up about you. So here's things that you should, by the first faculty meeting, these are things you should have accomplished. Know everybody's name and what they do. Barring this, move around the room and have the staff introduce themselves. Proximity and eye contact is important. You should know who they are. Get last year's annual, memorize their name and faces. If you aren't good at it, put some time in on it. Get an early win, present something positive to the staff. I don't care if I don't care how minute it is. You don't want the first thing that you do to be a failure. If that happens, it's kind of like the blind squirrel scenario after that syndrome. Even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every once in a while. If you get something right, they've already figured out you're an idiot, and even an idiot gets something right every now and then. You want your first foray into trying to get something done to be successful. So get a win early so that you're looked at as a competent person. Once you're looked at as a competent person, if things go wrong, that happens to everybody. But if the first few things that you do don't go well, people will categorize you as inefficient or incompetent or an idiot, and that's a hard mold to break. Give the staff a quick overview of who you are and your professional experience, and I do mean quick. Volunteer for something nobody else wants to do. Do as I do, lend a hand, be a servant leader. Present the open school plan and be conversant if your principal will let you. Smile and laugh at the appropriate times. Ask questions and take notes so you can follow up on requests. Carry a pad in your pocket so when people come to you, you can write it down. Recognize for something positive you've seen. Be specific. Let them know that you appreciate what you do and that you're paying attention. Don't complain or seem worried about being ready for the opening of school. The kids will show up and school will open whether you're ready or not. And number 10, and this is my pet peeve, don't mention how busy you are or how hard you're working. That's the expectation for everybody. So these are things that once you get your job, by that first faculty meeting, the die is going to be cast on you, unfortunately. And for your long-term survival in that role, here are some suggestions for you. I've got one more question coming in. Let me catch it. Should your references include our current assistant principal? Yes. I know that, but people have to understand that you got in this program for a reason. It's not like you're trying to find a teaching job. It's not like you're being disloyal. The whole idea is you're trying to move up. That kind of goes back to one of those things that got to bring on. Let me see right here. Your resume, cover letter, your references. It says having references on hand is good if you choose not to hand them all during the first interview. Gauge where you are in the process. So if you do decide to deploy your reference, you want them to be up to date and meaningful. But that's what that means. You kind of have two lists, general ones, and then when you get further along in the process, you might want to then, your AP and your principal. That's a good question, Travis. And that's kind of the answer right here. This is, again, under the 5 things you must bring. Your references. That's a good idea on that one. What if you think your principal doesn't like you? And they probably don't. So why do you care what they think? They're going to want to know anyway. And that kind of goes back to this one. I didn't spend a lot of time on this one. We wonder what you're not telling us. If you don't put your current administrative team down, they're wondering what you're not telling us. Whether they like you or whether they don't like you, you're kind of saddled with them. But you don't want it to seem like you're trying to hide something. It's better to get it out in the open that they might not like you than to wonder people wondering what you're hiding. Now, let me get these other 2 questions here. Yes, you should use them. Again, you might not. Again, going back to this other document, on the first level interview, when you're doing the cattle call interviews, you might not have them on that reference list. But when you get to the principal level interview, you will need to have your current principal on that level of interview. Again, there's different levels. When you're doing the cattle call interview, I just have some general references. If you get to the principal level interview, where you're, now it's serious, that's when you would put your principal on there. You're not trying to hide anything. That's one of the things we wonder what you're not telling us. You don't want that to become a problem. So again, you need to know what level of interview you're at. So what are the things they can say even if your evaluations are all accomplished? They really can't say anything other than what your evaluations are. They're not allowed to trash talk you. That's against the law, and you never know when you get turned in. All they can really do is talk about what your evaluations are anyway. Other questions as we go here. All right. Now, last thing tonight. I see a lot of resumes that come across my desk for different reasons. I guess y'all all know we have a pretty large department here. Have 21 folks that work with us. And so we get a lot of resumes for people looking for work, even here. And one of the things that I'm awfully cautious about if I don't know somebody, even at this level, if there are gaps in their resume. I don't know if you've been in the prison, you might have been in the pen for all I know, might have been in jail. I know that it's probably not, it's not modern and not as fancy. When I look at a resume, I want to see a chronological order of where you've been since high school. I'm sorry, I don't want to see any gaps. I had a student in Charlotte who said, well, I waitressed for 2 years there in between my husband, was moving around, and then I want to know that you waitressed for 2 years. That's a whole lot better than I was in the women's correctional facility for 2 years. I want to see a chronological from the time you left high school until now, where you been. When I look at a resume, I can't ask you, but if I see gaps, I got to wonder, what are you not telling me? What you were doing or not doing. I want to see a chronological order. Graduated from high school this year, went to college here, was there for, if you were there for 6 years, then you were there for 6 years. If you were on the Sonny Drysdale plan, and if you're old enough to know that reference, I taught this many years, I did this, I was here, I was there, I want to see a chronological. I don't want to see any gaps in your resume. I think that invites suspicion. People are worried about that. And so especially in smaller districts where they may not can afford background searches early on in the process. Sometimes folks, if you've got gaps, they just will pass you over. People want to feel comfortable that you're the right choice. So that would be my advice to you. We're wondering what you're not telling us. We want you to help us figure out why we should hire you. You know, I want to see all of your experiences. I want to see, you know, how, you know, that you were willing to work, you know, you were willing to do what it took to get by, that you were motivated, that you were a go-getter. We want to hire somebody that we can get along with. We want to know who you are in these interviews. So don't present yourself as something other than what you are. And we're wondering how it's going to be managing you. Again, your resume should tell us a lot of those kinds of things. All right. I see my time is up. If you have questions about interviewing, please get in touch with me. Again, these materials are under week 16 in Blackboard. Unless you're in Dr. Wilson's class, then I've got one that just says interviewing materials in hers. Otherwise, they're under week 16. And you can do these. If you need written references, I do those. I will write you a letter, especially if you need one here shortly. You can get in touch with me, and I will, once you get an interview set up, I'll be glad to write your reference letter for you. I can do a to whom may it concern, or you can send me the name and address, and I'll do that, or I can write a generic one for you. But we're certainly hopeful that you will all get a job if that's what you want to do, and we'll certainly do all we can to help you in that. And I'm sure your instructors will as well, and your coaches. All right, thank you for that, Heath. All right, anybody else have any other questions? I'll unmute and see if anybody's got anything else.
Hey, Dr. Lamb.
That came out.
It's Dr. Wilson.
Hey, Dr. Wilson.
Hey, one of the things that I know you get a lot of questions about is proof that they are eligible for their certification or that it's been applied for.
Yes.
You may want to address that.
Yeah, I write that letter. That's what I was just referring to. If you need a reference or if you need the letter that says that you were done, I will write the general letter that says that you will graduate where and when you're eligible for licensure. Seth will also send the appropriate materials. So if you need something that says that you're hireable, then just contact me, and either Seth or I or both will send the appropriate items. So if you need it, just let me know. Because some districts will not interview you until you are certified and bona fide, and I will certify that for you, or Seth will. All right. It was good to see you all. Turn off the share. All right. You got another week to get in your materials. If you're finishing with us, and you got what? This is next week's the last week already? Or is it week after? Right, Dave. Flipped up on us. I appreciate all of you being with us tonight. And everybody's thanking me. So, all right. Everybody have a good week. Yeah. Make sure you get the rest of your work in. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.